Welcome to another episode of the Empowerment Platform, where our mission is to empower you to reach your goals, whatever they may be. I'm joined as always by our other host, Mr. Jorge Sierra.
We blessed. I just so happen to work hard.
Right now. If there's something in your life that you want to change, commit today and stop wasting
Get 1%
time.
better every single day and do something positive.
We want you to go out and get it. If you don't live by nothing else, live by 2 R's. You either got reasons or you got results. Choose which one you have in your life today. Welcome to another episode of the Empowerment Platform, where our mission is to empower you to reach your goals, whatever they may be. Today, I have a special guest with me, Mr. Jorge Sierra. How is it going, Jorge?
We're doing amazing. We're doing amazing. Thank you.
Beautiful. Glad to have you here. As you guys may notice, our co-host is not here, Mr. Jorge Sierra. He had some things to take care of, but me and Jorge gonna rock and roll. So, Jorge, take us back. Give us a little introduction of who you are. Well, first, I'm gonna read your your bio. You're a motivational speaker and self-change advocate, taking his audience by storm with his transparent and inspiring story of triumph and perseverance. And when I was reading over it, I see that you are now paralyzed or paraplegic and you're in a wheelchair. Take us back to how that happened, because you weren't always this way. And so kind of take us back to your past, explain that out to us, what happened, and then we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story on your platform. Growing up, it was one of those things that I'm not gonna lie to you. I was loved. People that were in my life did the best they can. But education was not celebrated at home. Mom wasn't in the picture as often as I would have loved to have had her, or most likely she would have loved to be in part of my life. Father was not there at all. Raised by grandma. At home there was some drug abuse when it came to uncle, grandpa, we welfare recipients, Section 8, all that good stuff, government assistance. Since I could remember, was one of those things that, generational. By the time I was in, 13, I was already exposed to drugs. I was more appealed to the streets. I was more appealed to, the dope boys around the corner. And, growing up without no money and growing up without nobody to look at in the house that would actually aspire me or I could say that I want to be like that individual. It was real easy for me to just look outside and get attractive to what was going on out there. By the time I was in 9th grade, I dropped out. My freshman year, I was there for a couple months, maybe less than half a year. And that was the catalyst of me involving myself in not only gang activity, the dope boys. Now I'm, carrying guns, selling drugs. I'm full blown, out of control. Nobody at home, being that I just didn't have no respect, in the sense of, we tend to mimic what we see. We tend to, respect those that are winning. In my eyes, nobody at home was doing any of those things. And it was just easy for me to just follow those that had the shiny little things, right? The cars, the money, the women, and that became my programming. What do I mean by programming? We tend to feel that our surroundings or our situation defines who we are. And at that moment, it defined that led me to getting into a drug charge, which ultimately led me to being in court May 2nd of 94. That particular day, I had to go with my mother. I'm 17. I'm a minor. And when we get to the court, the courthouse is a police department in the first floor. Courthouse is in the second floor. We're inside the courtroom. That ultimately ran into some individuals that were from the opposite, rival gangs. Mm-hmm. That turned into a verbal altercation, which eventually turned into a physical altercation inside the courtroom. And, you know, for our surprising, instead of getting arrested, they dragged us downstairs. And, you know, I surely thought I was going to go right into the police department. They threw us outside. And, you know, the fight continued outside in front of the courthouse, which ultimately turned into my mother screaming, you know, there's a gun, turn around. I jumped in front of her and ultimately got twice, shot once and then twice, tried to run into the building, collapsed. And they ran up to me and they shot me 4 more times in the back. And, you know, at 17, that's where my transition came in as a paraplegic. So that's ultimately how I've been a paraplegic for the last 26 years. But I tell people all the time, way before I got put in a physical chair, I was already what we called in a mental paralyzed mindset. I already had a mental wheelchair. And that was the beginning of a lot. That was the beginning of a new life for Jorge.
Wow, Jorge, so you got gunned down in front of a courthouse.
Courthouse, police department, literally in front of the police department. Police department was right outside. Courthouse is in the 2nd floor. So yeah, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And yep.
Wow, that's crazy. I guess what happens is, you know, in that lifestyle, it can happen anywhere, anytime, depending on who you're around, what's going on, and how bad the blood is, if you will. And so, take us there when you talk about you were in a mental wheelchair before you got in the physical one. Um, Give us your ideas or your thoughts around that. Now that you realize it, how were you in that mental wheelchair before you got into the physical one?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest with you, my brother, you know, we tend to, first of all, let's understand what happens as human beings. We have what we call the subconscious. Our subconscious is something that it's wired to not make us successful, it's wired to make us safe. So ultimately, when you experience certain things in life, and since I was experienced a whole lot, like a lot of us as childhood, you tend to build these programs, and you tend to literally just, you know, create these programs that you feel are protecting you, but realistically, what they are doing is paralyzing you. Not having a father in my household, being exposed to my uncle and my grandfather being heroin addicts, you know, needles in their arm by the age of 6, you know, those things, you know, became the catalyst of me being attractive to, you know, those dope boys outside. Why? Because I said to myself, I don't want to be a bum like that. I don't want to ever be those individuals that steal from your own family, you know, stealing groceries, stealing, you know, money from the household, stealing from, just like you stealing from your own. And I was just, I remember being, you know, maybe 10 and just being disgusted with it, being scared in my own house, because these dudes were under the influence. There was a lot of physical fighting. So all these experiences literally, you know, started creating that paralyzed mindset. You know, as a kid, you're still very vulnerable. You're learning. But what we go through at an early age interferes and a lot of times become, you know, that programming that we still activating as a man, as an adult. And by the time I hit 17, I was already numb to, you know, what was around me. And I had this, I want to say this ego trip, and you wasn't going to disrespect me. You wasn't going to violate me. I mean, I had this thing, like, I thought literally I was Superman with an S on my chest. I couldn't be touched.
Yeah.
I'm walking around with guns. I'm walking around with money in my pocket. You know, by the time I was 15, you know, I'm telling grown men what to do. I'm part of the gang. Not only I'm part of the gang at this point, but I'm actually, you know, running the gang in so many ways. And, you know, you start really living a life that is just, you can't see. You know, if I could get out of my body at that moment and kind of step out and just look at myself, I could only imagine. And I look back and and those were the moments where I know, you know, I know that way before I got put in that chair, I already had that paralyzed mindset, my way of thinking, my ego paralyzed me in so many ways. Think about what was going on the day I got gunned down. I'm in court. I decide just to kind of connect and bring everything together. The day that I went to court, I need you to understand that I got caught with crack cocaine. A month prior to that is when I got caught with crack cocaine. Just so you know, where I got caught with crack cocaine was literally outside that same building I got gunned down. I'm walking across the building, right? I'm downtown Bristol. I'm walking. I got crack cocaine. I'm going to the projects. They stopped to talk to me. A couple of guys in front of the courthouse. I knew them. We're talking. They were playing with a cap gun. And literally somebody reported that these group of individuals are outside and they have a gun. They put everybody against the wall. They don't find no gun, but they find crack on Jorge. Now, a month after, I got locked up. Grandmother bailed me out at that point. Going to see the judge, and now I'm charged with having possession at a federal building. Same building that I get gunned down a month after.
Wow. Almost a circle of just in that mindset, in that environment, and it just came right back around to you in that specific area.
Sir, it was, and I look back. It's been 26 years. I'll be 27 years, May 2nd of this year. It'll be 27 years, and I look back, and again, you're programming, right? It's been 27 years, and sometimes it feels like if it was yesterday. And I react that same, and I'm like, what are the coincidence that I get caught with crack cocaine? Walking by this building, and then literally a month after I get gunned down. But I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that we all have destinies, and that was just mostly written for me. But that was the beginning of a new life for myself. But I understood there was a lot of work in front of me, because I still, being in the chair and even going through that, still have what we call the paralyzed mindset.
Okay. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's where I was going to take us next. Once this happened, once you were gunned down, you go through treatment, of course, surgeries. Now you're in the wheelchair. Now your life has changed completely. Where did you start? Where did you start at that point? How did you begin to, because now we know who you are today, but take us through that transition of newly in a wheelchair, but still having the mental wheelchair. How did you begin to break out? What was the other changing factors that brought you out of that mental wheelchair?
Well, it took me a while, to be honest with you. Just like anybody that goes through any traumatic situation, two things happen, right? It's whether it's an accident, whether it's sexually inflicted, whether it's physically inflicted. Two things happen. You either become a victim of that, or you become a victor, meaning you either become very paralyzed with the fact that you can't ever be around guns because you got shot, or you become infatuated with guns. And trauma works in so many different ways. And with me, I actually became worse because I was in a space that I was so angry. I was looking forward to doing what they did to me. It was one of those things that whole situation really, in a chair. Now I'm literally 10 times worse than what I was. Now I'm in a chair. I'm engaging. I'm more involved in the streets. And now think about it, Jorge, paralyzed mindset. Why? Because I think I'm still that young brother that could stand. I'm thinking that I'm not receiving that I am a paraplegic. I have to use catheters. If you don't know what a catheter is, it's a plastic tube that I have to now use to put in my private area to urinate, because I have no longer functions to urinate on my own. Mm-hmm. Right. And so now I'm hanging around. My family, at this point picked up and left. Once after they passed through that trauma, like literally I was left behind because they didn't want nothing to do with this. Some went to New York, some went to Massachusetts. So I stood out there for a good 2 years by myself. Wow. Going from house to house, still doing what I was doing, didn't miss a beat. And, I started getting sick because at this point, I'm catching infections from the catheters. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not eating right. I'm starting to see that you're not a value no more to people, right? Because now I'm in the wheelchair. Now individuals have to deal with a paraplegic. When we go out, when we go chill, and they go into a third floor, they have to pick Jorge up and drag him for 3 floors. They got to put him inside and out of the car. It's not as appealing to everybody else right now. And you start seeing people's reaction. You start seeing that certain people start falling off and don't want to deal with the task in hand. And I became more of a burden than anything else. In the beginning, prior to me going in the chair, I was that guy to call. I was the first one to step in. I was the one that would literally, show up. So there was a lot going on, but I'm blessed to be able to catch on to these things. And ultimately what happened, I got sick, and I had to make some choices. And I could have stayed behind, but I knew that wasn't, after 2 years of going through these things, I'm like, this is not it. I'm starting to see people's behaviors. I'm starting to see that you're more, people are bothered. And even when you deal with the streets, only 3 things that you're going to get out of it. You're either going to, go to jail, career criminal. Yeah. You're going to eventually die, or you're going to end up in a wheelchair like I did. And I really started thinking that started manifesting in my head. I'm like, yo, you got lucky, bro. Like, even though, you see how this is where I start literally changing my paralyzed mindset, because I'm literally saying to myself, even though I'm in a chair, I'm like, yo, you got lucky. Yeah. Out of those 3, give me that chair. I can't be in jail. I'm not built for that. I'm not built for that. I can't do that whole incarcerated career criminal thing. I obviously don't want to die. Right. And so I'm like, I got the chair. And so I made a decision. I said, well, let me go. And I followed my grandmother out to Massachusetts, where she had moved 2 years prior, once I got gunned down. And that was the transition of me being able to start what we call transition from your paralyzed mindset to your prosperous mindset, right? I had to get out of the environment, because at that point, my surroundings were defining who I was at the moment. And even though I went through a trauma, I just couldn't get past the fact that, that same lifestyle is what got me into the chair. And then when it was clear that I had to make some type of move, I was just grateful that I had somewhere to leave and somewhere to go to. So I'm not longer sitting in that environment. Because if I would have stood there, I don't know. I don't know what would that look like.
Yeah, and that's very true, Jorge, because if we sit in the same environment, like you said, the same system, the same programming, the same routine, there is no change. Change is hard to come by if you see the same thing, because your subconscious mind just runs you through the same programming. Hey, now I was in the streets then, this happened, I'm still in the streets because I'm still in the environment. And so oftentimes when I've heard wealthy rappers say it, I've heard people that made it out of the hood say it. It's like, I didn't leave the hood because I wanted to abandon it. I left because if I didn't leave, there was be no way I could grow, because growth takes change and we have to stretch our mind, but that can't be stretched unless you see something different. And that's why when I mentor youth and I ask them specific questions, a lot of what they give me back is, well, it sounds good what you're saying, but nobody I know is like that. Nobody I know does that. I don't see anybody doing that. So how is it? It doesn't even seem real. It's almost like a fantasy that you watch on TV. So definitely you got out, you went with your grandmother. How did you end up in cosmetology school, becoming a barber? What was that the next step for you, and what made you go down that path?
Hey, listen, first of all, praise my God and Savior, because I can't take no credit for anything in my life in the sense of where I'm at right now. But to be truly honest with you, man, there was no, once I got out of Connecticut and I moved to Massachusetts, I was ready to live. Right now I cared about life. I care about, well, I don't want to die. Year prior to that, I was ready to die. I was like, I don't care. You know, that's what I meant by that paralyzed mindset. A lot of us are so stuck in a certain situation, you get so numb that you start telling yourself, yo, it is what it is. It's not what it is. You have to find a solution to that. You have to stop the bleeding. And so being in Massachusetts, that's what happened. And, you know, driving by Rob Roy Academy, which is, you know, cosmetologist barbering school, that particular situation came about because I drove by the school. I had, not myself, I'm in the passenger. Good friend of mine at the time was driving, and I see a young lady, and I said, hey, hold up, let me, like, you know what I'm saying? And we stopped to talk to the young lady. Yep. There was nothing deep about me going to barbering school. I never aspired to go to barbering school. Truth be told, when I tell people, they're like, you got to be kidding me. I said, I stopped to go talk to a young lady that was standing in front of the school. And when I went up to her, you know, when we pulled up on her, you know, she literally started laughing. She said, boy, you better leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? You better leave me alone, you know, in other words. And, you know, and I'm like, well, I'm looking for a nurse. She was dressed in white. And because she was all dressed in white, I, you know, trying to be cute. And she said, I am no nurse. This is a beauty school. This is I go to school here. And I said, a beauty school? And I literally told my guy, get my chair out the car. And I was, for whatever reason, intrigued that she told me this was a beauty school. And I've gotten haircuts, you know, prior in my life as a youngin', but I never thought that that was a thing. And for what, something just clicked, and I just wanted to check it out. I went into the building, and I went in there joking around, which I ultimately did, you know, in the wheelchair. I would go to military, you know, Air Force, you know, any office that would be with military, and just kind of like went in there and just joke around and be like, y'all ready to sign up, just to see people's reaction. Because I'm in a wheelchair, and people get awkward, like they don't want to tell me no. And, you know, well, we sorry because it's a process. And I'm like, so what, you telling me I can't do it because I'm in a wheelchair? And I used to have fun with that, right? Yeah. Went in there with the same mindset, and they happened to call the instructor at the time. The instructor, her name was Mrs. Giaquinto. And this lady came out, militant, about 4'5", 4'7", Italian, older lady. And, you know, she comes and she says, she meets me, she goes onto the waiting area, and she said, well, come on, I'm gonna show you the clinic. And she brings me into the clinic. So now I'm still in that joking mode. But I'm intrigued with it. I'm like, oh, this is an actual thing. And she looks around. She you know, she tells me, you know, she started explaining what this is the barbering clinic. And then she tells me, well, when do you want to sign up? And I'm like, now I'm looking at this lady like, what you mean, when do I want to sign up? Like, don't you see I'm in a chair? And I'm like, come on, like I'm in a, how am I gonna, because now I'm in a room where everybody's what? Everybody, I'm the minority in that room.
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to understand what I'm saying. I'm the minority. I'm not talking about skin color. I'm talking about, I'm the only disabled individual in that room. Everybody, you know, being a barber and a cosmetologist consists of standing up behind a chair for hours. Mm-hmm. And this woman, for whatever reason, looked at me. It was like, when you ready to do this? And I'm looking at her like, oh, come on. Like, now you joking. Now you want to joke with me? And you know, we had a moment where she said to me, life is what you make it. It changed my life. It changed my life.
That statement.
It changed my life. That moment, I never left that school. I actually signed up, and I passed the program, 1,000 hours in the state of Massachusetts. Not only I passed the program, she became a mentor to me. She allowed me to work with her. She actually, you know, suggested, she's like, I need you to come and teach. And I taught for 18 years. I've been a barber for over 20 years. Still own a business over 16 years with 11 chairs. I didn't just become a barber. I'm a dual license. I dominated the industry. I traveled across the country. I became part of the state Massachusetts Barbering Board. Not only I educated you, I also was one of the ones that evaluated you at a state level and tested you. And I also reprimanded you if you actually, you know, caught in any violations within the state as a unlicensed barber or unlicensed shop owner at a high level. So I have done platform work in the chair. And that moment, that Miss Giaquinto not only challenged me, but believed in me. I it was scary. It was a process, but I walked into it full head, and I'm here, and we're talking because that particular day was the catalyst to the rest of my life.
Wow. Now that's amazing because you went in jokingly, got challenged, and you went all the way in. Like you just you had no desire to do it, to be a barber, but then you went all the way in, and from hearing you gave it all that you had and excelled.
Yeah. Well, you got to understand, right? There's something, Tyrus. There's something that we get to a point in our life that a lot of us get tired of being tired. I was tired. I was tired of being in that paralyzed mindset. I knew everything I've tried and have been taught prior to that have gotten nowhere but a chair. What did I have to lose at this point? And a lot of us, we can't see that. You get to a point in life like you have to literally check yourself and say, what do you have to lose? Like, this lady don't know me. She's like, yo, I believe in you. She literally that day, because of the conversation we had, I'm like, yo, how am I gonna do that? You know what she did? And this is why, as coaches, as mentors, we have to always think outside the box. She went and I had to visually see how I was gonna be able to become a barber. She went into the closet, pulled out an office chair, pulled out some pillows that she had from her husband, hunting pillows. She put them on top of the office chair. She took some duct tape. She put a box right underneath those pillows. She taped everything around, and she asked me, can you move from your chair into this chair? And I'm like, I mean, I could try it. And when I was able to do that, she showed me, she didn't just show me how to eat. She like, she didn't just fed me. She showed me how to eat. She showed me how to, like, literally, I would have never figured that out. I would have never thought. But once she showed me that day, and all this happened the same day I went to see her. Like, literally, she didn't wave me off. She didn't get aggravated because there's this guy in a wheelchair trying to talk about, I want to be a barber. She literally went out of her way to, like, yo, she was intrigued with the fact, like, yo, can I make him a barber? Can I? And so I walked into it. Now, was there doubt? Was I scared? Was I embarrassed? I'm embarrassed. I'm the only one that looks a certain way. Now I'm doing new things. They having me, that could have gone any way. The first client that I had, he looked at my chair, looked at me and laughed like, yo, you got to be kidding me. Like, how is he going to cut my hair? Now, you know where I come from. The programming, I wanted to just really get really disrespectful at the moment. I wanted to get like, what you mean? Like, and I'm looking at him. So I turned red, and the decision I made there, and that was when she talked to me. She was like, you can't let anybody or anything get you out of character. And I went through that process, and I gave that man a cut. My first cut. While growing up, I was told not to ever touch nobody's face. Don't get close enough. So it was awkward for me. Like, everything I did through that whole process was the most challenging. But at the other end of it was so rewarding. And I'll be honest with you, I'm so grateful to be able to go into that process. And sometimes what scares you the most is what you need to go through, because ultimately that's what's going to transform you to who you want to be and who you need to.
Wow. Stretched you. The entire process stretched you, took you from the programming that you had and reprogrammed you to do different things. Everything that you had to go through was something different for you.
Well, remember, what was my paralyzed? What was the one thing that was really paralyzed me, Tyrus? Was what? It was my ego.
Yeah.
Right? Everything I've told you to now, everything we've spoken, it's been, don't disrespect me. I'm the man. I'm that my pride and ego was what got me shot, because I'm fighting in the courtroom.
Right.
Right? Like, literally, right? And then outside, I know there's 4 guys on me, just me and my mom, and I'm still like, let's go. Pride, ego put me in that chair. And then when I get into the school, I have to put aside my pride, my ego, stay humble, And that wasn't easy, because that's that paralyzed mindset that we talked about. That's what keeps you stuck. That's what keeps you without, what is the meaning of paralyzed? Broken, can't feel, can't move, right? Can't produce. I mean, we could use the word paralyzed in so many ways, but it literally means you can't move forward. And I wouldn't allow myself to move forward. And through that experience, I was able, and that's why I always say give grace to God. I was able to put that aside, because if I would have never grasped that at that moment, that was in 97 that I joined barbering school. We're in 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in 2021, right? That's over 20 something years. I would have never been in a position to be able to create, generational wealth for my family. I'm a ninth grade dropout. I mean, I'm doing things right now that if you look at the track record, it all started from that moment that I was able to go through that process and allow me to create and to make the adjustments and create the proper habits to start creating a career for myself.
Wow. So going through all of that, you obviously had success, had a measure
Yes.
of success. Then you decided, or what was the catalyst to become a speaker, a coach, to give back? Going from barber school, owning a barbershop, being on the state board, all of that's a career. It's a lifestyle. And then you shifted. What caused that shift? And take us through that journey.
That's good. That's good. I think I it's funny, right? Sometimes we doubt ourselves, but we've been doing something that since I was young, I've always had a gift. I've had a gift to be able to go into a situation, an environment, and come out a leader, right? Like I've always had the voice. Pre-gang member, I remember, football, my only year in high school, I've always had the ability to rile up everybody in the team. Like I only had like one season, my freshman year. Best thing that ever happened to me. I loved it. Like I love football. And because I didn't have the right grades, I dropped out of school. And that's why that was the trigger to that. But I say that at that time, that's when I noticed that I had this ability, and it didn't come to me until like years after. But as I turned into the streets, now I'm telling grown men, I'm 15. I got 20-something-year-olds, and I'm telling them what to do. I'm in the circle. I'm the one motivating and telling like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's not something that it was ever taught to me. It was just something that I picked up, I guess, from home or my whatever it was. It was just that gift to be able to lead and speak, and people listen. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, as I went into barbering school, that gave me what? It gave me a platform.
Yeah.
Now I have an amount of students that I'm talking to every day, right? I'm working Monday through Friday. I'm doing this for several years. So now I believe in what we're doing. Why? It saved my life. So now I got broken individuals, young ladies and young brothers coming through that door. And guess what? Miss Giaquinto did what for me? She built me up. She was there for me. That was the first white lady to show me that color don't matter.
Yeah.
Right. Like where I came from, it's like all the white folks, it was easy to just put it on everybody. And that lady showed me like, nah, you just got to be a good human being. Forget the color thing. And she showed me. And so that same love that she gave me and that same opportunity, I would give it to every student that came to that. Whether they had drug addiction, whether they had same issues that I was coming up with gang activity. Some of them were just dealing with poverty. Some of them were just broken. Some of them were just, whatever the situation, I would minister to them. I would speak to them. I would build them up. I'll be like, no, you're amazing. You're great. Don't ever forget. You could look at me. I'm in a wheelchair and I like, you can't let the guy in the wheelchair beat you is what I used to always tell him. Like, come on, you can't. Like I'm doing platform work, I'm doing this, and I would use that and use my pattern of success to kind of show you like, yo, if I could do this in an industry that consists of you standing up, come on, you could do this. That started becoming the catalyst of me being able to speak, and that's when I really started noticing. I'm like, you have a gift. You're able to really, minister to people. people talk, and it wasn't just me. People would actually come up to me after each graduation, I would give them a little speech. And that turned into, people were like, yo, you gave, people would be crying, and ultimately, I got sick one year. And being a paraplegic, I've gone through about 4 or 5 major surgeries, which consist of skin breakdowns. That particular time that I went through that experience, so every time I go through these skin breakdowns, at times I catch bone infections. So I'm in the hospital, literally in the nursing home for a year or better. Not just in the hospital, but in bed, same bed for a year, bathing, eating, using the bathroom, like just consistently. So in the last several years, I've experienced those type of surgeries multiple times. In that particular year, I was already a business owner. I was in the industry long enough. And I remember just going through it, and I came close to losing a lot because it was longer than usual. And I come across this man called Eric Thomas, and I'll be honest with you, when I seen ET, that's when I'm like, yo, he was able to show me what it looks like to be myself and use my gift and be able to minister to people that come from where I come from, people that, I don't care if you come from money. I don't care. We all broken somehow. We all have gone through something. And I started really identifying with, like, you have this gift. This is what it looks like at a high level. And not only I was intrigued with meeting him, but I fell in love with and understood that this was actually a thing. This was a career. This was an industry that you could become a public speaker. You could actually share your story. And that was the catalyst of me shifting and transitioning after several years and being successful at with a barbershop, being successful in my career as a barber / cosmetologist / instructor for both fields. Right. I have 4 licenses inside the industry. And at that point, I felt like I hit my ultimate, plateau.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was hungry for more. And I was literally, not to, discredit the barber or beauty industry, but I was bored. I was bored with it. And so it just came at the right time. And now, I'm chasing, I'm learning what the public speaker looks like. I went out and met E at one of his conferences, and everything I saw after that was just, my new transition, my new life gave me that fresher breath air. Now we understand that we're really transforming from that paralyzed mindset to that prosperous mindset. And then how can I grab everything that I've been acquired in the last several years to help others? Like, how can I, formulate, what got me out of that paralyzed mindset? And that's how we started working with the personal development.
Okay, beautiful. And so when you're working in personal development, oftentimes before we can help people work on themselves, we have to work on ourselves internally. And so in that transition of coaching, you were probably taking in, seeing yourself in a different light, reinventing yourself, if you will. Talk to us about going from paralyzed to prosperous, what that means for you, because that's the name of your new book. I'm gonna definitely
Yes.
put the link for. Take us through some of that. Because you had your, I would say, your low point back when you're 17 years old, boom. And you went through barber school and you didn't really get low again, but you plateaued and you had to make that next jump. What was it for you to go from paralyzed to prosperous mentally?
Good question, right? I believe that I stopped thinking about Jorge, and I started putting other people in front of me before. Now I want to serve. Prior to that, it was what can Jorge get?
Yeah.
How can Jorge get to the next level? And it was always about Jorge. And I found that was still something that was paralyzing me. That was still something that, even though I truly believe that you have to put oxygen on yourself before you put it on anybody, I believe that you should have self-love. You should always take care of you. You can't help others if you're not good. But it wasn't just that. It was me just really, and there's nothing wrong, right, with wanting to be better and always putting yourself first, but it could be borderline selfish. And I believe that I was at a point in my life that I was selfish. And I just have gotten to a point that I realize how blessed I am. And I look around and I seen a lot of folks that, you know, we're going through some things, and I'm like, how can I better other people? And I believe that shift of mindset literally literally got me to that prospect side. Because the minute that I didn't make it about me no longer, and I really started serving people, it's when my career started really getting to the next level, to be honest with you. And people like, oh, that's so, everybody says that. It's the truth. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why anybody that's a millionaire, billionaire, they really don't concentrate. Like, billionaires don't concentrate on money like that. They concentrate, even though they're building their empire, but they really, they find what makes them happy. How can they buy their time back, and how they could serve the world? And when you do find those things for yourself, it is a blessing within itself, and it is so much better given than to receive. Period. So that was where I started really being, Jorge started transitioning into, someone that understood, personal development. I understood that personal development is not a destination, it's a journey. And I also understood that you can't, you have to bring people with you. You got to teach them. And as you go on your journey, there was few things that I acquired that I kind of learned. And, I share that with my book, which is the walk process, right? These things, there's, what walk means to me is that after 20 something years of me being a paraplegic, in 94, they told my mom in the hospital, they say, your son is going to be a paraplegic for the rest of his life. He'll never walk again. And I remember those words, and I remember my tears coming down my cheek, and I refused to really believe that. I was not going to let any man tell me that I wasn't going to be able to do something. And, that same energy was the same energy that was able to remind myself, that you have to take care of yourself. You have to do certain things. And for the grace of God, after 20 certain years, I'm able to stand up. I'm able to walk. I'm able to take steps, right? Like, I can't feel half my body, and I'm still doing what they said I wasn't going to do. And so to me, when I wrote my book, Paralyzed to Prosperous, helping students walk into their greatness, it's exactly that. Because just like you, I go to schools, I work with students, I work with adults, but my heart is always with the young kings and queens. Why? Because I come from that. I know what it was for me, how tough it was for me. So any chance I get to go to schools, programs, and feed them the good word and show them, because as a young brother and sister, we need to see, unfortunately, you could tell somebody, if you love them, like, don't do this, don't do that. But if they can't relate to you, it just doesn't click sooner than what you would hope. When they see me roll into a building, they could literally see he went through something. Why? Because the chair is just automatically draws them to it. Now I look a certain way. I got earrings, right? I look, usually got my beard color, and I look a little younger, right? And but they get intrigued with the fact not only I'm in the chair, but I'm a barber. Yeah. So I use that platform, right? I use that experience to kind of, because in the hoods, we don't have athletes, we don't got these role models that stick out. And one of the things that they do hold on to, barbers. They're the ones that they go week in, week out. They get introduced to these individuals. And hopefully these barbers are being some type of a role model and guiding them, because we are the pipeline to the community. So they get intrigued with the fact, like, how are you a barber? How do you cut hair? Yeah. And that's the conversation, right? And once I get them into that conversation, I finish my speech with, showing them what it looks like to walk forward. And I stand up, and they, right, they don't see that coming, and they just get wild. And as I'm standing, I'm let them know that they have everything it takes to be able to get out of the situation that they are in right now. And my walk acronyms is what is your chair? What is your wheelchair? Mm-hmm. You first of all have to identify, what's the problem? Have you been sexually abused? Are you dealing because you're just exposed to, confidence? And this is something that it hits the whole room. Educators, I've had teachers come up to me and be like, yo, I know you came here for the students, but you spoke to my soul. We've all experienced some type of trauma, some type of situation, and we still holding on to that.
Right.
And our babies don't have the tools or the know-how. And my job is to let them know that, like, first of all, you're going to be all right. Like, I look a certain way, but don't get it twisted. We made it and we just getting started. So what is your wheelchair, right? What is that one thing or those things that are keeping you paralyzed with that paralyzed mindset? You have to identify that first before you move forward. And then the A, aspiring to be more. You have to aspire. You gotta want more. Jorge was able to walk through. Once we got connected to Mr. Quinto and the opportunity came up, right? I didn't like that. That was just an opportunity. I could have rolled out of there and never looked back. Like, let's be honest with you. I wasn't looking for it. I could have been like, yo, that's cool. But I literally walked into that and stepped into a scary situation, something new to me. Never been exposed to that. But at that point, I already aspired to want to be alive. I knew that I was no longer wanted to be in the situation that I just came from. Then you have the L, love yourself, self-love. You have to not only aspire to want more, but at this point, you got to love yourself enough to believe in yourself, understand that you deserve better. You deserve the best things in life. And this is something that I really, truly, it took me a long time to love myself. I was never taught self-love was a thing. It was real easy to point fingers at myself. How can you put yourself in that environment? How can you, be walking around with this? Why? Like, why? And it would literally paralyze myself because I would literally beat myself up because of my decision making. Not understanding that, you wasn't taught. When I was a young kid, they would smack me aside the head because the dishes wasn't washed the right way. But nobody really sat there and showed me how to wash dishes. Right. How do you expect me to wash dishes when nobody, like, I think about it, I was like, it's crazy. Like, nobody sat there and walked through a process. So how many times that I stumbled and fell, but it's because nobody was there to really walk me through that. Mm-hmm. So self-love is something that's like, stop beating yourself up. Like, once you aspire to be great and want more and be phenomenal, you got to take care, you got to heal self. And that starts from the inside out. I work with a lot of adults and we do a lot of entrepreneurship and personal development. And they want to get to generational wealth. They want to get to the next level. And I'm like, but let's start inside. Let's start inside first. Let's start from the inside out. Before we start doing anything else, how are you doing? Yeah. So that self-love is huge, right? And then the K, kick that chair. Kick that chair, right? Once you identify it, you aspire to want more. You do. You have your self-love. Now it's time to just kick the chair and walk forward into that greatness, into what God has created you to be. And those 4 steps, have been the foundation for me. To this day, I got to remind myself, like, hold on, you're doing too much. Mm-hmm. Let's take a step back. First of all, are you loving yourself? You got a lot, and you're doing a lot for a lot of people. Are you loving yourself? Yeah. There's times that I got to bring it back to I got to get inspired. Like, perfect example. This season, I'm chasing a degree in college, right? I'm even though I own multiple businesses, I published a book last year, but we a lot of people told me, you don't need that. Why are you going back to school? I aspire to be better. Yeah. I not because a degree defines me, but God is going to use me once I get to that degree in so many different ways. Imagine how I go now from banging sets to cashing checks with a degree. It's different because once you show people what that looks like, then it's a whole different world. So that walk process to this day is what I teach. It's what has helped me, on a daily basis, to be honest with you. And I remind myself what I need to do to be able to continue to walk forward.
Good, good. Now we about 10 minutes out. I want to ask you, Jorge, in your mind right now, where you are and where you go, or when you envision where you're going, are you having fun?
I am. I am, right? I'm actually excited, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. Business is good. I'm in a position. I'm in a position to help others. Um, my family. I got a beautiful wife, a son, a 14-year-old, and a 26-year-old daughter. But we have joy in our household. There's a peace in our household. There's a peace within myself. I'll be 45 by the end of this summer, in August, and I'm excited to know that we just getting started. I'm excited to know that, I look back just to see how far I've gotten, but I don't get caught up with whatever it is, even accomplishments. I'm excited to see, how I could break through some new. I'm chasing a PhD. I just challenged myself for the next 12 years to create to get a PhD. We're not just talking about going in there and getting an associate's or a bachelor's, which there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I'm not chasing the degree. I'm chasing the experience. I'm chasing like how and I think that's what happens with me. I literally look. I've learned to think of things that are incredibly impossible for so many people, and I'm like, okay, let's go chase that. How many people would have walked into this whole barbering industry in which just said, yo, let's go get that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what God has for us. I'm excited to help others. I'm in a space in my life that I prefer to give than to receive. And just to give you an insight of where I see myself in the next 5-10 years, I want to be able to literally be in a position to pay some tuitions for some folks, give some opportunities for others. I want to help some single moms. I want to really be financially situated, not only that I could help my family, my loved ones, but others that are less fortunate, don't have certain individuals in their life to be able to get to the next level.
Beautiful. And that will come to you more over and over and over, because when you have that pure intention to help and give back, you'll be blessed so that you can bless others. So I have no doubt in my mind, just seeing who you are, following your journey, being in the same community with you, seeing you level up time and time again, is all working in your favor by his will. So Jorge, I appreciate you for joining me today, for sharing your story. If people want to reach out to you, how can they contact you? How can they follow you?
Yeah, so you could go to Jorge Sierra, JorgeSierra, .com, my website, but in all platforms, social media, IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, like same Jorge Sierra. You'll be able to find me. Any questions, if there's anything I could do to serve in any way, please don't hesitate. We in this together, and I have coaches for everything. I have, and I'm not, if I gotta just answer a question, like just reach out. Let's win. Let's continue to walk forward, man.
Absolutely. Again, I definitely appreciate you. I'm going to drop your links into Facebook, YouTube, so people can see them. Drop a link to your website so to make sure they can catch a book. Please go out and purchase his book. Support Jorge so that you can receive the valuable information. Because many people, Jorge, they ask or they want to talk to people, they want to see people, but the life story is in the book. the
Yeah.
the principles are in the book, and I'm a big fan and component of reading books in order to get the information that we need, because I might not be able to get next to you right now. You might be busy, but you already dropped the information in the book. So purchase the book. I'm gonna drop the links. I want to appreciate you all and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Empowerment Platform, where our mission is to help you reach your goals, whatever they may be. Thank you. And thank you again, Jorge. We'll see you next week.